Good morning. You are a new panel that just arrived this morning, is that correct?
Correct.
All right. Well, I'm going to give you some initial instructions then. And first, can you all hear me? So I'm going to take my mask off so I'm not muffled. If you cannot hear me or anyone else, we have hearing assistance devices available. But my name is Pete Cahill, and I am one of the judges of the District Court, and you have been summoned, as you know, as potential jurors in the case of State of Minnesota versus Derek Chauvin, which is a criminal case related to the death of George Floyd on May 25th, 2020. Now, a person charged with a crime has a right to a fair trial before an impartial judge and an impartial jury. In order to make sure that the jurors who are selected are impartial, the law provides that the court and the attorneys for the parties may ask questions to all the prospective jurors, which must be answered under oath. First of all, thank you for filling out the questionnaire that was mailed to you. Your contribution to the important and serious matter at hand is best served by continuing to provide full and complete answers to the questions that you'll be asked today. Those questions will follow up on issues from the questionnaire and possibly other topics. Now, after the questioning is over, the attorneys will have the right to excuse some of you from service on this jury, and I may excuse others of you for what is called cause. In either case, it does not mean that you are not a fair person, and you should not take offense in being excused. I also ask that you not take any offense at any question you might be asked. We must pry, to some extent, in order to explore opinions you might hold and to hear about experiences that you have had that might affect your ability to serve in this case. Now, in this case, the defendant, Mr. Chauvin, has been charged with murder in the second degree and manslaughter in the second degree. But during the normal course of a trial, charges might be added to or subtracted from those charges. But those are the charges as it stands today. To the charges, the defendant has entered a plea of not guilty, which is a denial of each and every material allegation in the charges. And I'm now going to ask the parties to introduce themselves and their clients, beginning with the state of Minnesota.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Steve Swisher. I represent the state of Minnesota.
Hello, my name is Christina Marinakis. I'm assisting with the prosecution.
Hello, my name is Keith Ellison, and I represent the state of Minnesota. I'm Joshua Larson. I also am representing the state. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Nelson.
Hello, my name is Eric Nelson. I'm the attorney for the defendant, Derek Chauvin, along with my assistant, Amy Voss.
Thank you. Now, does anyone know any of the attorneys who have just introduced themselves? All right. Does anybody know anyone else from the Office of the Attorney General, including Aaron Eldridge, Jerry Blackwell, or anyone else who might work for that office? All right. Does anyone? Yes.
In passing, I might know people who work at the Attorney General office, but no one that I could name it particularly.
All right. And you are juror number?
29.
Juror 29, we'll have you talk about that when we question you individually. So if we forget, please remind us to follow up on that. Does anyone have any familiarity with anybody from Mr. Nelson's office? Okay. Does anyone on this small panel know anybody else in the courtroom? All right. Now, you've been given a copy of a list of potential witnesses, and I'd ask that you please review it before you are questioned individually, if you have not done so already. And you'll be asked, essentially, if you know anyone on that list. Now, one of the things that the attorneys may not do in jury selection is to instruct you on the law. But I want you to be aware of some of the basic concepts that apply in all criminal cases so that you may keep them in mind as you answer the court's and the attorney's questions. So I will instruct you as follows. First, the charges against the defendant are not evidence, and they create no inference of guilt. No member of the jury panel should in any way permit himself or herself to be prejudiced against the defendant because a charge has been made against him or because he has been placed on trial. The defendant is presumed innocent of the charges made against him, and in order for you to find the defendant guilty, the state must prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. The defendant does not have to prove his innocence. The presumption of innocence remains with the defendant throughout the trial, unless and until he has been proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, according to the law and the evidence admitted at trial. Proof beyond a reasonable doubt is such proof as ordinarily prudent men and women would act upon in their most important affairs. A reasonable doubt is a doubt based upon reason and common sense. It does not mean a fanciful or capricious doubt, nor does it mean beyond all possibility of doubt. If you serve on this jury, you and your fellow jurors will be the sole judges of whether a witness is to be believed and of the weight to be given their testimony. There are no hard and fast rules to guide you in this respect, but in determining believability and weight of testimony, jurors may take into consideration the witness's interest or lack of interest in the outcome of the case, relationship to the parties, ability and opportunity to know, remember, and relate the facts, manner, age and experience, frankness and sincerity or the lack thereof, the reasonableness or the unreasonableness of their testimony in light of all the other evidence in the case, and any other factors that bear on believability and weight. If on this jury, you should rely in the last analysis upon your own experience, good judgment, and common sense. Now, there are things you should not do during jury selection. You are not investigators. You are not to go out to do any looking, and you are not to ask people about this matter. You are not to use the internet to look for information about this case or about the law. Above all, you must not talk to anyone who is involved, the lawyers, or the witnesses. Do not be offended if the attorneys or parties do not talk to you. They know that it would be improper to contact you except through the normal jury selection process, and they will generally confine themselves to a brief greeting. Now, during the selection process, your family and friends might be curious as to what you are doing. You may tell them you are on a panel of potential jurors in a criminal case, and that is all you should tell them. Since that is all you should tell family and friends, that is all you should tell the general public. So, during these proceedings, please refrain from using Facebook, Twitter, or other social media to announce that you are a potential juror or to comment on this trial. You may access those social media tools, but please do not publish any information about this case or your thoughts about this case. You do not have to stay away from people and refuse to speak to them. Do whatever you wish, but do not talk about this case, and above all, do not talk at all to anyone involved in it. Now, because of the nature of the charges, this case is receiving media coverage. Do not read about this case in the newspapers or online, and do not listen to news about it on radio or television. Now, this trial, including jury selection, is being televised, but no video of you or any other juror will be taken at any time, now or during trial if you are selected. Also, your name will not be used in the courtroom. You will only be referred to by your random number to protect your privacy. The audio of anything you say will be broadcast, unless we need to discuss something deeply personal or extremely sensitive or embarrassing, and I specifically order the audio not to be broadcast. In that case, the audio will only be heard within this courtroom. In that case, you will still have to answer questions, and they will be on the record, but without any audio or video broadcast whatsoever. So with that, I'm going to return you to the waiting area, except for juror number 27. Juror number 27 can come up to the witness stand, but the other two can go back to the waiting room with the deputy. Sure. Good morning. It's still morning.
Good morning.
I'm going to put my mask back on. If you would like to
Meeting will
remove...
automatically end in a few moments. Please press any key to continue the meeting.
What is that? All right. I'm going to take care of that. We had a Zoom hearing earlier this morning, so perhaps it's waiting for us to get back on.
Your meeting will automatically end in a few moments. Please press any key to continue the meeting.
Okay. Kind of threw me there. I will have my mask on. We have plexiglass, and I will try and stay 6 feet away. If you would like to remove your mask, you may do so.
Your meeting will automatically end in a few moments. Please press any key to continue the meeting.
I feel like I'm on hold with Microsoft. So in any case, I just wanted to make you comfortable with these COVID restrictions, and I've seen you've removed your mask. Thank you. Everybody just take a short recess here. Okay, let's get back to business. Before I turn the questioning over to the attorneys, what I want to do is swear you in to make sure that all your answers are under oath. So if you could raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that you will truthfully answer all questions about your qualifications to serve as a juror?
I do.
All right. I'm going to ask you to pull up to the microphone. Unfortunately, it's not very movable. So,
Okay.
but that's good. I was able to pick up your voice. You filled out a questionnaire, and thank you so much for doing that. That really helps us to explore some topics. And the question I have for you to start with is, was everything true on the questionnaire?
Do I have any other question?
No. Was it everything on the questionnaire true?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have, as you sit here right now, do you have any additions or amendments to it? I only ask because sometimes you fill out the questionnaire months ago, and in reflection you go, could be an opinion changed, or you, on reflection, think that something's inaccurate. It's fine. In fact, it's encouraged that if it's changed or you need to add or subtract something, feel free to volunteer that. As you sit here right now, is there anything at the top of your mind regarding possible changes?
No, but I think one of the things is I fill out the form 3 months ago, and I don't even remember what I wrote.
Right.
So yeah.
Don't worry. The lawyers are really good at reminding you about it. So what we're going to do is, as they ask questions, I don't want you to feel like, I think I gave the wrong answer.
Right.
So feel free to say, that's not accurate. You're not going to get in trouble. What we're looking for is just candid, honest, open answers. The questionnaire is just a tool for that. And so your questions or your answers today, feel free to say something different. And they might ask you to explain why. Like, did you forget something, or have your opinions evolved? So feel free to offer any information. Now, you're not supposed to read any articles, and I think the questionnaire said, since you are a potential juror, avoid media about the case, about reading about it.
Okay.
But we recognize that sometimes, despite your best efforts, you might inadvertently be exposed to a headline, or a friend brings up, hey, did you hear about, and then give you some substance about the case. Anything since the time you filled out the questionnaire till today, anything like that happen where you've received more information about the case or the process or procedures, the attorneys, the parties, anything?
Just some information on the news.
Okay. And was it basically, I know there's been a lot on the news about the trial is starting, jury selection is in process.
Correct.
Anything beyond that?
No.
Okay. Now, and we bring that up, and you, in your questionnaire, you noted that you do recall some information from media reports about the case, and that's pretty much universal.
Yeah.
And the question isn't have you heard about the case, but what have you heard, and can you put that aside? Because if you are on the jury, your job is to be fair and impartial above all, but to decide the case only on the evidence in the courtroom and apply the law that I give to you, and disregard anything you heard outside the courtroom. And it's also okay if you've formed various opinions based on what you've heard, but you also have to put those opinions aside. And some people say I can, some people say I can't. And so that's some of the topics we're going to be exploring today.
Okay.
As you sit here right now, do you think you could put aside what you've heard outside the courtroom, any opinions you've formed, and decide the case just on the law and the evidence that you hear in court?
I do.
Okay, thank you. All right, did you recognize anybody on that long list of witnesses?
No.
All right. Is there anything about the length of the trial that causes you concern?
No.
Okay, you think you could serve, because we're talking about 4 weeks, probably starting March 29th. We don't know how long deliberation goes, that's up to the jury. But you think you could accommodate that?
Correct.
All right, excellent. Anything else you wanted to ask or know before I turn it over to the attorneys?
No.
All right, for juror number 27, Mr. Nelson, you may inquire.
I think I can officially say good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for your patience. Sometimes these things take a little bit longer than we anticipate, but I appreciate you being here and for your patience this morning.
Thank you.
All right, so what I'm going to do, sir, is I'm going to ask you a series of kind of general questions about yourself, try to get to know you a little bit, and then I'm going to follow up with some specific questions about some answers you gave in your questionnaire.
Okay.
I understand that you wrote this and answered these questions quite some time ago. No one's trying to trick you. And if you want to be you want your recollection to be refreshed, we will certainly do that. Okay?
Okay.
All right. I forgot. So let me ask you this. If you and I were to meet in a social circumstance, party, or some other event, what are a few things you would want me to know about you after that conversation?
After what conversation?
Well, we have a conversation at a party, we meet, we're talking. What do you want me to know about you?
My background.
Background, what you love, what you hate. You
What
tell
I
me.
do.
Yeah.
My hobbies.
Yeah, whatever.
Well, background, I came in the U.S. a little over 14 years ago. Went to school in Nebraska, moved to the state, Minnesota, in 2012, and I'm in IT. I see myself as technologies. So I was laughing when the judge was having issues with Zoom earlier. So I love technology, so I'm in cloud and security and development, and I speak multiple languages. French is another language that I speak, and I'm married. I live with my beautiful wife, and we have a dog. So I love sport, and even though I went to school in Nebraska, I'm a big Golfers fan, and I love the Vikings, and so some of those things that I will share with you.
Good. And I'm sorry, did you say you have a daughter now?
No, I have a dog.
Oh, dog. I'm sorry. I was wondering because you had answered you had no children, and I heard dog.
Correct.
Okay. When you first received the notice that you were going to be a juror, or you could potentially be a juror, what was your first reaction to that?
Surprise and anxious. Obviously, this is time consuming, and obviously I have this is civic duty also. So those are some of my first feelings that I had.
Okay. And then I think you subsequently learned that you could potentially be a juror in this case.
Correct.
And how did your feelings change, or what was your feeling when you learned that?
I think the anxiety, obviously the anxiety, went out, but I think in between I had a plan to travel internationally, so I had to cancel my I had to cancel my flight, and I guess that's the only feeling that I had. Nothing really changed.
Okay.
And I will also add that the fact that I understand that the case is very something that a lot of people are interested in, and the ability for me to keep it from my wife, and so those things, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you said your anxiety kind of went up when you learned it was this case. Were you concerned about your personal safety?
No, not at all. It's just I think it's a big I think it's a big thing to decide in a case, so just making sure that if you potentially selected, that you make the right decision. Yes.
Okay. So you work, I know you work in like information technology
Correct.
Services,
Mm-hmm.
and I believe we're trying to keep you as anonymous as we can, so don't say where you work or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I understand you to be in management.
Correct.
How many people do you manage?
8 people.
8
Yeah.
people?
Yeah.
And can you think of a situation in your professional life where you have had to resolve a conflict between 2 of the people that work for you?
Yeah, I mean, it happens all the time. Obviously, before I became a manager, I was an individual contributor myself. So, so the ability to, well, the one thing that happens often with my team personally is my team is, first of all, is globally distributed. So I have few folks in Minneapolis, some other people in other states as well. Conflict always happen, especially with my team when it comes to making a decision about technology or a strategy to implement a specific project. Person A or B might have different perspective about how to go about making that decision. Just for instance, we're talking about Zoom, so I'll use that example. Person A might say, well, I wanna use another collaboration tools, and B might be, okay, I love Zoom. So making that decision and ensuring that the team is aligned with whatever decision you make, and making sure that if we decide not to go with person B's opinion, it's nothing personal. I think that's some of those conflicts that I have to deal with. Yeah.
And so if I kind of, to paraphrase what I think, you take a look at the situation. You analyze both people's perspectives, you talk about it, and you then implement the appropriate decision.
Agreed.
Agreed?
Yeah.
And you understand in large part that that's what you would be doing if you were selected as a juror in this case.
I do.
You would have to decide this case with 11 other people, and all 12 of you would have to agree either guilty or not guilty. You understand that?
I do.
And that, have you, in your management experience, have those discussions ever become, or those decision-making processes, have they ever become heated?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just natural. Sometimes it comes naturally when people are passionate about the topic. Sometimes it just comes naturally. But I mean, I think for me, it's always important to make sure that my team understand that. Like I said earlier, that it's nothing personal. You can have all this strong opinion about a specific topic, but at the end, we just want the best for my organization, my team, right? So.
Right. Okay. So, in a different context of conflict, right? Can you think of a situation, either professionally or personally, where you've had to decide which person is telling the truth?
Well, I mean, I have. I mean, when person A come to me and say, this person have said this, and, you know, I think for me, I'll listen to person A and then talk to person B and put both parties together and try to resolve that conflict, right? And so I think it has happened to me.
Okay. And so, and I understand the attempt to resolve that conflict, but how do you decide which of these people is telling the truth? Right? What tools would you use to determine whether someone is telling the truth about a situation?
I mean, you go with the fact, go with evidence, I guess, you know, and because sometimes that's the best way to go, right? Because people can say whatever they want, but I think at the end of the day, it's based on fact. If person A said that person B stole my laptop at work, but the laptop was not stolen by person B, then I mean, I will talk to both of them, and the fact doesn't support that argument. So,
okay. So, if you were a juror in this case, for example, you may hear testimony from witnesses about the same event. They're looking at the same event. One person is saying A, and another person is saying B. How do you determine which is the more credible explanation?
well, I mean, I think I will go with the evidence that support the fact, right? And, you know, I know maybe I'm talking in circle here, but I mean, you know, it's either black or white, right? Or red or yellow. You know, it's clear. So sometimes the best way to resolve conflict or misunderstanding or is to go with what you have in front of you and go with that.
Right. So I think, and maybe let me put it into perspective that you understand, because it's always hard to talk in the hypothetical. Right?
Yeah.
So you work in information technology, and you have a project that you're working on, and there are two software programs potentially that resolve that problem, right? And person number one says, well, I think we should use Zoom, and person number two says, I think we should use Teams, right? But they're both trying to resolve the same problem, right? And so when you have those two circumstances, right, you have two potential resolutions or explanations, how do you analyze which is the best to fit that problem?
So for us in technology, what we do for stuff like that is do a cost analysis, do risk, what kind of benefit or feature these type of technology are bringing to your team, or added value, I should probably say, are bringing to your team. So then you look at both, I mean, and compare and see the added value that this technology are bringing to your organization or your business, and you go with the one that that works best for your organization.
Excellent, great, thanks. Now, you were asked a series of questions, or when you first came in here, the judge gave you some basic rules of law that apply in all criminal cases.
Correct.
And you were asked some questions about those rules of law, and if you could follow them in this questionnaire.
Correct.
So one of the questions that I have for you is, if you would you be able to follow the law even if you think it should be different? If you disagree with the law?
I would.
Okay. So if Judge Cahill were to instruct you, this is the law, even if you disagree with it, do you think that you could follow that instruction?
I'll follow the law, yeah.
So I'm just going to ask you a few questions. It shouldn't take too long about your questionnaire.
Okay.
And again, I'm not trying to trick you, or take things out of context or anything. So you've obviously heard about the facts of this case, right? I mean, you've.
I don't know the fact about the case.
Okay. You've seen the social media video that went viral?
Some of it. I try to stay away from social media really, way before. So some of it, and I would say mainly on TV.
Okay.
Yeah.
So have you ever gone on the internet and watched the video that went viral in its entirety?
What video? There are multiple videos. What video specifically?
Okay, so that's part of what I want to talk about.
Okay.
So there's the video that was taken by a bystander and it was posted on Facebook or some other social media platform.
I saw that.
Okay, so you went on the internet.
I didn't go on the internet. I think it was somebody showed me it pop up on my, because some of the if you go to, I have Apple News Plus, so some of those things will show you some of those stuff. Yeah, I didn't go on the internet and look.
So that.
So I mean, like some of the news feed, like I believe Apple News Plus, give you some of those feed. It's just like
Right.
CNN and MSNBC or Fox News, and then you can click and see the news of the day.
Okay.
So that's how I got on those things.
So that particular video, have you watched that particular video in its entirety?
Well, I only watch, I believe, whatever I got from the news. So I don't know if it was the whole video.
Okay, that's kind of what I'm trying to ask
Correct,
you.
because I don't know, and yeah.
So that you may have seen parts or snippets or clips of a video, but those were a part of a news or a media story. That's what
Correct.
you're saying? Okay,
Yeah,
great.
you got it. Yeah.
But you never, after reading a news story, said, I wonder if there's more to this, and went on the internet and looked for the entire quote-unquote video.
Correct.
Okay. And you obviously knew that this situation became pretty big news nationally, internationally, locally, obviously.
Yes.
And you've had conversations about the case with your friends.
With my wife.
And your wife?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay. So the question, you're asked a question, from what you have seen, read, or heard, do you have a general impression of the defendant, in this case, Mr. Chauvin, and you checked somewhat negative, and you wrote, based on the video I saw on TV, but I also understand that I wasn't there and don't know what happened before the event.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
And would you stand by that statement today?
I will.
Okay. And so I understand what you're saying in terms of you weren't there, you don't know what happened before, you don't know what happened after. Your opinion is somewhat based on this little bits that you've seen in the news, right?
Correct.
But nevertheless, you had a somewhat negative perception of that. Agreed?
Yeah. Opinion.
Yep. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, is that right?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. And that's okay. You're human. You're going to have an opinion, right? The question is, can you set that opinion aside and focus on the evidence as it's presented in court and make a decision based on that, the information, the evidence, and not your opinion? Can you do that?
Yeah, I think I can do that. I mean, and as you can see, my recollection for that question was, that was so long ago, but that reflects my value because I wasn't there. I saw, and the part of the video that I saw was somewhat negative because of, what transpired on the video. So that's all I have. I don't know any other fact. So that's why I say what negative.
And I appreciate that. And I want to know, because you equivocated a little bit in terms of the question is, can you set aside that opinion? And you said, I think I can. But what we need to hear you say is, I can do that.
I can do that.
Okay.
And I believe I'll be partial.
Great. Partial or impartial?
I'll be impartial.
Yeah, okay. I had to double check. And you said that you had talked about, and I want to ask you about this. Have you ever talked about George Floyd's death with your family, friends, or coworkers, or discussed it online? And you checked yes. And you said your wife.
Correct.
Right? And you said, we talked about how it could have been me or anyone else. Can you explain that a little?
I'm sorry, the last part of that sentence?
Sure. We talked about how it could have been me, comma, or anyone else.
I mean, anyone else. Me, human, can be it could be anybody. It could have been you. And so that's what I mean. And for me, I also used to live not far from that area before, when I first met my wife. So that's why I was like, it could have been me. So it could be anybody. So.
Do you have a perception or an opinion of the Minneapolis Police Department, just generally speaking?
I do not.
And do you have any experience with law enforcement officers?
I do not.
You do or do not?
I do not.
Okay, good. In terms of the sort of aftermath and the rioting and protesting, and there's a distinction, I understand, but you say that it asked for your opinion as to whether it was a negative or a positive impact, and you wrote that people in my community understand the protest but were not okay with the looting.
Correct.
How do you draw, what's the distinction, and can you just explain that a little bit more?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of my friends understand that, people have the right to protest, but at the same time, people are concerned that, businesses have to shut down. My wife didn't make it to work because she worked in the North Loop area, and the image, my dad called me and was asking if I was okay, So I think that's what I was saying. I mean by that, right? People understand that, yeah, everybody has the right to protest, just like how people protest. I mean, people protest in this country I mean, I don't want to go on and on, but so I understand that the people have to voice their opinion for, how they feel about specific topic, and that's their right. It's just the fact that a lot of businesses have to close and things like that. I think that's where I was coming from.
I appreciate that. And again, I completely understand your sentiment. All right. You were asked a couple of questions about the Black Lives Matter and the Blue Lives Matter. Do you remember those questions generally?
I don't remember what my response was, but yeah, I mean.
Yeah, again, not trying to trick you. And you, with respect to the Black Lives Matter, you checked the box that you viewed them somewhat favorably, and you wrote, I think any lives matter, but black people's lives matter even more since they are marginalized.
Correct.
And you would agree with that now here today?
Yes.
Okay. And you also, in terms of Blue Lives Matter, found them to be somewhat favorable as well. And you wrote that you believe our cops need to be safe and feel safe to protect our community.
Yeah, but correct.
Okay. And again, you would still stand by that proposition?
I do.
The last two questions I have for you is the last questions that you were asked. Do you want to serve as a juror in this case? And you checked the box yes. And why, when they asked you why, you said it is a service to my community and the country.
Correct.
How do you define that? What do you mean by that?
I mean, I think it's a civic duty. I talked about it earlier, and also believe that to make the justice system work, I think we need people that are part of the community to sit as a juror. So,
May I have a moment, Your Honor? Your Honor, we'll pass the cause.
All right, Mr. Slusher, what's going on? Juror 27, I have been pushing these people pretty hard since 8 o'clock in the morning, and so we need a lunch break, and I know that means more delay for you. I apologize. We actually have a lunch waiting for you, so hopefully it'll meet whatever dietary restrictions you might have. But we're going to return you to the other courtroom, and we'll bring you back, let's go at 1:15. Any objection to that? That gives us about 50 minutes for lunch. All right. At 1:15, we'll come back and get you. Okay? Thank you. We're in recess.